On today's episode, we're going to give a look ahead to the upcoming free agency for the Bengals, talking about free agents from the Bengals that they're going to want to try to keep, also the ones that they might let go, and we're also going to talk about potential free agent targets for the Bengals, and maybe a couple potential or high likelihood trades the Bengals could look into. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Way of the Dad podcast, where we fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness. If you like what you are hearing, please share the podcast and give it a review on the platform where you listen. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back. So, we're getting close to free agency, and I really wanted to get into what the Bengals may or may not do, how much they're going to consider spending, and it's, quite frankly, it's a really fun conversation, because I get to play GM a little bit, it's always a fun time. I really wish we were talking about the Super Bowl champion Bengals going into free agency. Unfortunately, we're not. But this team strikes me as a team that is probably going to be even hungrier. And I'm judging that based off of how Joe Burrow reacted to the loss. This is a guy that doesn't like to lose. And I mean, nobody likes to lose. But I think losing, setbacks, unexpected challenges, they only seem to make him hungrier and more focused and sharpening the blade, so to speak. So, I think we can have a really fun conversation today. I figure I kind of split this up. We're going to talk about the free agents that are on the Bengals first. Well, free agents that were on the 21 team. So there's a lot here. I'm not going to go... This list is not comprehensive. It's not exhaustive. So we're going to talk about some that I think are probably the most important ones. Maybe even a couple interesting ones. So we're going to start with, quite frankly, talking about the defense. We've got a lot of people on defense that were a big part of the Super Bowl run, and some of these are free agents. So that's kind of a problem. On the D-line, potentially losing two big pieces. We've got B.J. Hill and Larry Ogunjobi. I'm going to talk about these kind of in tandem because I do feel like it's a one or the other type proposition for the Bengals. Right now, the word on the street, I went out to the street, I checked, there was a word on it, and so that it was this. Larry Ogunjobi is going to be probably pretty pricey. He had a heck of a year. He was on kind of a, if I remember correctly, I believe he was on a 1-year kind of prove-it deal with us, and he balled out. There's no doubt about that. So I think he's going to be a little bit difficult to keep because even though the Bengals have some of the, I think they're the number 5 in cap availability in the league. Probably a little more, maybe a little higher than that. If they get rid of someone, well, I'll talk about in a minute. But they could have, theoretically, most project, they have like almost $50 million now, and they could have virtually $60 million to play with if they make a couple moves real quick. That's a lot of money to spend, but the Bengals have usually been very, I know a lot of people are going to say cheap, and there is some validity to that. But the Bengals don't overpay. They don't like to overpay. They're usually pretty financially sound. I mean, you've got some teams right now that are absolutely, it's almost like a fire sale going on, which is, I mean, some of these people we're going to be talking about. The Bucks, the Saints, there's a fire sale going on because, you can kick the can down the street financially for a long time. But in the NFL, catches up to you, and then you have to basically start, having basically a garage sale. You start cutting left and right and making deals that someone, another team can't afford to ignore. So with BJ Hill and Ogunjobi, I feel like the probability is much higher that we re-sign BJ Hill, because even though he doesn't quite have that explosiveness that Ogunjobi has, he proved himself to be an extremely solid D lineman. He can make plays, he can put pressure, and quite frankly, he can do his job. He can show up, and he's reliable, he's durable. And considering the fact that we got, I honestly, when we traded Billy Price to the Giants for BJ Hill, it was kind of a little bit of an overlook. I mean, everybody thought BJ Hill had a little bit of, he could play a little bit. But most of it was just, we were amazed we got more than a ham sandwich and a bag of chips for Billy Price. I mean, he was a bust. I mean, there's no way to look around that. Compared to what they thought he was going to be, he was a bust. So I think they'll keep Hill because I think they can get him at a more value appropriate amount. Whereas I think Ogunjobi is just going to command too much money. I mean, he's, a very hot prospect on the free agency market. And there's going to be bidders. And, when there's a lot of bidders, it tends to overpay. And that's not something the Bengals tend to do. I could be wrong. It'll be interesting. I might even do another episode where I come back and once free agency's kind of done, we'll go back on, I don't want to steal anybody's segment. I don't know what I'll call it, but it'll be in the vein of a where Colin was right when Colin was wrong. So let's look at the secondary now. We've got Jesse Bates, we got Eli Apple, Vernon Hargreaves, and Ricardo Allen. Let's start with Bates. That's the big one. Let's get him out of the way. They did franchise tag him. So one way or another, he is going to be on the Bengals team next year. The question is, will he be malcontent because he didn't get a deal? Are they going to get him a deal before the season starts? It's hard to say right now. And a lot of people are kind of mad that they tagged him. But I think they did it out of a way to ensure that he's going to be on this team and to give them more time to negotiate a contract. Apparently, the holdup is because the Bengals don't like to give a lot of guaranteed money. And I guess the norm in the league, or at least most of the league tends to give more guaranteed money. So my understanding is that's the holdup. But another, and I can't remember where I heard this, but another thought that came up was the safety market's not really set. And so they don't want to go setting the market. They'd rather let the market set and then work from there. And so maybe that's another thing where they're just buying some time and maybe they'll be able to get a deal done. And that'd be great. Looking at Apple, you're not going to find me to be a Apple hater. Now, I know that there are plenty of Apple haters, and some of them very justifiably so, because Eli Apple is one of those cornerbacks that a lot of people don't like him. They really don't. And that's okay. And some of it's deserved, let's be honest. He likes to get on Twitter. He talks a big game. And his talking game doesn't quite match his playing game. His playing game is good. His talking game is kind of reflects that he's maybe like peak Richard Sherman or something, which he's not. So it's very understandable why he gets a little bit of heat. But I'm one of those people that actually, I kind of like Eli Apple. And I guess I say that because I keep it in the proper context. A lot of people forget, because they saw Apple all year long, they forgot that he wasn't supposed to be the starter. He was never supposed to be the every down starter opposite of Awuzie. That was supposed to be Trey Waynes. We'll get to him in a minute, by the way. But Eli Apple ended up doing something he wasn't supposed to do. He wasn't supposed to be a starter. He was supposed to be a spot work guy, extra cornerback, basically a third cornerback, because Mike Hilton was in the slot. So, honestly, in the beginning of the season, I gave him a lot of grief because he was making a lot of mistakes. He was getting burned a lot. Things like that. Not that he didn't make some plays here and there. But his game really picked up as the season went on. And quite frankly, he played really, really well. A lot of people want to casually or conveniently forget that Eli Apple was part of the reason why we kept advancing in the playoffs. I know that doesn't sit well with some people because they just want to hate him. That's fine. You can go hate him, and you can also be wrong. it's okay to be wrong as long as you know you're wrong. Eli Apple is not a bad cornerback. Is he the greatest cornerback? No, he's not. But in this world where everybody is either amazing or trash, to hell with that. No, that's not right. Eli Apple is a good cornerback. I'd say he's even above average. But he's not ideally the guy you want to lean on every snap for a full season. Because he doesn't have elite level skill set, but he has probably an above average skill set. So the Bengals are going to be looking to get an elite skill set there. Do they keep Apple? I think they could. I really do. I think they could. I think there's some value in keeping him as long as the price is right. And that's what you're going to hear me say that a lot because it's always that. As long as he doesn't think that he just earned big time money, then, it's possible. Vernon Hargreaves? Yeah, dude. I'm pretty sure you're going to have to find yourself a new team. After that totally ignorant stunt you pulled at the Super Bowl when you went out there to celebrate with the defense. And I mean, look, it's already bad that you were out there in a hoodie and you weren't dressed for the game and you went onto the field to celebrate with the defense when they did something and you didn't do anything. Extra foul for flip-flops with socks. That's extra foul, big time. So I think he's going to be finding a new team. I hate to say that, but maybe he's a good guy. But that's one of those boneheaded plays or boneheaded moments that I bet he wishes he could take that back. Ricardo Allen, he was a good backup safety. If as long as the price is right, he could provide some depth there. He's not a replacement for Bates that I'm aware of, unless he levels up in some amazing way next year. He's not a replacement for Bates or anything like that. But he did play well in Anarumo's scheme, so he could be possible. Trey Waynes? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he's gone. I'm sorry. They can cut him and add I think 11 million to the cap, 10 or 11 million. And considering out of the 2 out of the 3 years, he has provided almost nothing to the Bengals, let someone else pay him some money if they want to bring him on as a prove-it type contract thing. But yeah, no, he's gone. So moving on, we've got an interesting one here, and this one's a little tough to talk about, I guess, and it's the punter position. I know a lot of people don't think too much about special teams. I know Clark Harris is he's a free agent, and I think they'll probably re-sign him as long as his body isn't falling apart. And I know he only has one job on the team, but as long as he's in good shape and he's healthy, he has been so reliable and so consistent. And as goofy as it sounds, it's hard to find someone who's really good at that particular one single job. So I would imagine they would try to re-sign Clark Harris because they don't want to go with another long snapper and start over. Like I said, unless his body's falling apart or something. And I mean, man, that mullet and mustache, that's worth what? That's got to be worth at least $500,000, isn't it? Keeping that on your team. So I hope they keep Clark Harris. But it does lead to the conversation of punter. Kevin Huber is an absolute, I mean, A-class, gold standard type of guy. And, there's a wonderful story about the fact that he is an all-Cincinnati guy. He played high school here, he played college here, and he's now played his entire pro career up to this point here. I think that they will try to re-sign Huber, but his numbers did drop off this year, so I don't know what's in his mind. I don't know if, he wants to sign a short-term contract where maybe he tries to stay with the team long enough to get a Super Bowl because we did get close. I don't know how his body feels. I don't know if he can maybe he can have a bounce-back year. I know he's a little older, but I think he's 13 years, I think, in the NFL. So he's not ancient by any means of the word. I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but it just depends on, I think a lot of that depends on what's in his mind, because they also have Drew Chrisman on contract, or I think he's on the practice squad. They've been keeping him around, and I assume that's as a backup, like just in case, break glass in case of emergency type thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Punter. I hope they can keep Kevin Huber. I hope he can have a bounce back year. And it'll be a little sad if we have to move on. And, but I have a feeling they're going to try to do right by him and work with him on where he's at and how he feels. It seems like he has a really great relationship with the organization, so we'll see how that goes. Next one here is kind of one of those ones that flies under the radar. Nobody thinks about it, but it's possible, or it's possible we could lose Brandon Allen as the backup quarterback. And, look, backup quarterback's a position you barely want to ever hear of, and you damn sure don't want to see him. And that's great. But if Brandon Allen does leave, he is an unrestricted free agent. So if he leaves, who would they put in there to back up him? And it's, they've never given a lot of money to backups, and rightfully so. My personal feeling is they'll probably try to work out a deal because Brandon Allen does know the system. And a lot of people think Brandon Allen, oh man, he's trash. Well, first of all, he's a backup. So again, here we go with the amazing and trash argument. And it's like some kind of weird mental gymnastics where we can only have two possible words to describe someone: amazing and trash. Brandon Allen's a legit, good, solid backup quarterback. And a lot of people forget that we almost beat the Browns in week 17, or what? No, that'd be week 18, 17th game, week 18. We almost beat the Browns, and they were playing all of their starters except for Baker Mayfield. We were playing virtually none of our starters. I mean, the only starters who played were the ones who absolutely had to because of, just roster limitations. So I'm, come on. I wouldn't hate it if they kept him. It'd be fine. I mean, he's stable, he's solid, he's reliable. I don't know that there's like a Luke McCown out there who is perfectly fine being a backup and is an absolute fountain of knowledge. I don't know that one of those exists right now out there. And then not to mention your backup doesn't know the system. So being familiar with the system is a benefit and a bonus. Moving on to the O-line. We got a couple here to talk about. We got Riley Reef, and we've got Quentin Spain. There might be a couple others, like backup O-linemen, but I'm just going to talk about people who I know are generally starters. Riley Reef was pretty good. Not great, not trash, just pretty good. I didn't realize this last year when they signed him, but he wasn't a right tackle. They swung him to right tackle, and of course he signed and agreed to it. But I didn't realize that he was a left tackle for the vast majority of his career. So considering that, he did pretty good. He's a little older, and I mean, we do have potential durability question mark now because he was on IR for the last chunk of the season, last I don't know how many games, and then of course the whole postseason. So he wasn't able to help us there. And everybody wants to rag on Isaiah Prince, but Isaiah Prince was not supposed to be starting. Just remember that. I do not know if they'll try to keep him because there are, quite frankly, options out there that would potentially be pretty big upgrades, not only in play, but a reduction in age as well, younger. I mean, that's a thing. Clock's ticking on every single one of these players all the time. I don't know that they're going to bring back Reef. I think they might just let him go, especially if they nab somebody in free agency when it opens, or maybe just after the initial flood comes out. And then Quentin Spain played left guard most of the year, if I remember correctly. I believe he was the starter at left guard almost all season. I mean, we can say he was durable, and he was. He played all right. And the problem with projecting whether they keep him or not, one, of course, it's going to be price. If he thinks he earned a heck of a contract, well, then I'm sure they'll say goodbye. He didn't play that good. But depending on how free agency goes, depending on who they get, because there's the other possibility that they get a left tackle and they move Jonah Williams into guard because they think he might even be a better guard than he is a tackle. That flips everything on its end. So it's going to be hard to project what they do with Quentin Spain. I personally wouldn't mind them keeping him here, especially if Frank Pollock likes him. But I think they would, in an ideal world, I think they would like him to be a backup, a swing guard, and not a starter. But if he is a starter, if you keep Jonah Williams at left tackle and you keep him at left guard, that's not the worst, because the right side of the line was by far the worst part of the line. So if they go heavy to address the right side of the line and maybe center, Quentin Spain is, he's not that bad. And again, there's only so much money in the pot, and it sounds like there's a ton, but there's not. You get two or three big signings, and most of that $60 million some odd dollars is gone. So you got to be careful. I think they could bring him back. So I'm going to kind of speed this up a little bit. We're going to go over to the available free agent side. People who are out there that the Bengals are likely to target. What do I think about them? And then also a couple, at least one that is a high trade possibility. So we've got a bunch of course, it's a lot of O-line. Imagine that. Shocking statement, right? We've got at tackles, we've got Tron Armstead, the Saints. We've got Cam Robinson of the Jags, Orlando Brown from the Chiefs. And then we've got a trade possibility of Lael Collins. I assume I'm saying that correctly. I hope I'm not butchering his name. And he's with the Cowboys. He's under contract. But apparently, they're looking to move him. So that opens up a world of possibility right there. So let's go with the free agents first. Tron Armstead, Saints, offensive tackle. I believe he's left tackle, and he's said very, very clearly that he will only be a left tackle. To me, that drops him in my whatever. Unless the Bengals have already decided that Jonah Williams is going to move to left guard because he's a massive upgrade there and he's maybe even better at guard, then I would wonder why I'm looking so hot at Tron Armstead. You only sign a left tackle, and this is why I did not believe the Penei Sewell talk. Penei Sewell is a left tackle. And I did not read anywhere or hear anything that gave me any reason to believe that he was likely as a swing tackle, that they could swing him to the right side. And everybody's talking about Penei Sewell, Penei Sewell, Penei Sewell. But why? And everybody's like, well, you just move Jonah Williams around, or you move Penei Sewell over there. Well, sometimes you can't just flip a tackle. Not all tackles are flippable. Some are really left dominant or right dominant. And considering Penei Sewell's never played right tackle, and guess who drafted him? The Lions. Did you know that they tried Penei Sewell out at right tackle? It didn't go well. So, for last year's draft, the Bengals made the right choice, I believe. Not just because they made it to the Super Bowl, but because they knew there was a potentially high payoff value in Chase and question marks for Penei Sewell and even Rashawn Slater, although Rashawn Slater did have more flip capability. He was a more versatile lineman. But I don't know that they saw Hall of Fame linemen either with him. That's the problem. Whereas they saw the potential for a Hall of Fame wide receiver, the value was higher with Chase. Not to mention he already knows Joe Burrow. They've already got their timing. They've already got a relationship and a trust and everything else. And we saw that all year long. They made the right decision. End of story. That book is closed. So with Tron Armstead, the other problem is he's a little older. He's in his 30s. He has had injury history. He's probably going to be expensive. I don't think they signed Tron Armstead. If they are going to do something at tackle, whether it be right or left, I think the much more likely plan is Lael Collins from the Cowboys, Orlando Brown from the Chiefs, or Cam Robinson from the Jags, which is an interesting possibility. I'll get to that in a second, because let's talk about Lael Collins from the Cowboys. It's a trade. It's going to cost something. It's going to cost the Bengals something they usually don't like giving up, which is picks. The Bengals usually like to trade down and get more picks. So what is he going to cost? If it's a first rounder? I don't know. It depends on what they think there is going to be there in the first round, but there are supposed to be some good cornerbacks and maybe even some good linemen there. Might even be a tight end that drops. So I don't know if they're inclined to get rid of their first round pick. And is it just a pick, or is it a pick and a player? It's hard to say. The nice thing is I think Lael Collins is under contract for another year or two, and he's young, and he's really good. So it could be good there, and he is a right offensive tackle. which is great because we absolutely need that. I don't know if you watch those games, but we need that. So, Orlando Brown from the Chiefs, I don't think this one's likely because he's likely to be highly sought after by many teams, including the Chiefs, and they'd like to re-sign him. Don't know why they haven't already. Cap restrictions. Maybe they don't have a franchise tag to play with. They've already got it on someone else. I don't know their off-season plans, but I don't know that we would get him. And I don't know if he's a good fit for Frank Pollock, because that's the other wild card in all this. Who does Frank Pollock like? He has a very distinct identity about his linemen that he wants them to fit. So Cam Robinson could be an interesting target because he doesn't get quite the name run in all the articles and the online chatter and everything else. But he's a young left tackle. He's capable, and he's on the upswing. He really stepped up this past year at the Jags, despite the fact that everything else was pretty terrible there. He really, really stepped up big time from his play from the previous year. So he would be an interesting person to pick up who they think is maybe stock is rising, so to speak. I think that Cam Robinson and Lael Collins are the most likely to tackle options that they would go after. We got a bunch of guard options too. You got Laken Tomlinson from the 49ers. You got Austin Corbett of the Rams. And it seems like there's about 30,000 guards out there that are available. I don't know what they're going to do at guard. I don't know if they're going to do anything at guard because we have Deontay Smith. We have Jackson Carman. It depends on what they think of their year 2 bump, potentially. And I think we've got Trey Hill as well. So I don't know what they're going to do there. And Bengals historically have not valued guard highly as far as paying. They want someone who has an appropriate price point and is not basically not a turnstile. They prefer someone who's cheap and has upside potential. Another thing is center. Ryan Jensen is on the market from the Bucks. He seems to be the only center they really talk about terribly much. I do wonder what they would do there. Ryan Jensen would be an interesting signing. Again, cost is going to matter here, and he has many suitors, a couple of them here in the AFC North. It's also interesting to see what they think about Trey Hopkins. Do they think he's going to have a bounce-back year next year? Because he played with an ACL repair day 1, game 1, ready to go. And, look, it wasn't that great. It was rough. So it'll be interesting to see what they think of Hopkins and his ability to have a bounce-back year. But at the same time, Hopkins has always been a serviceable center. He's no Richie Bram. The other thing is they have Trey Hill on the roster. Trey Hill is naturally a center. They have him listed as a center. So it makes me wonder if they think Trey Hill is the answer going forward. And if they do, I wouldn't be shocked if they do nothing in free agency with center. I think it's possible. But then that would tell me what they think of Trey Hill and his potential. Unless they think he's more natural at guard. So there's a lot of possibilities there. 2 other big positions of talk point. The next one would be cornerback, because I think they're going to want a legit starting CB2 or second cornerback out there opposite Awuzie. And everybody talks about J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. That's cool. That's great. I would love to have him here. Make no mistake of that. But he might cost too much, quite frankly. And a lot of people are like, oh, don't be cheap. But you got to understand, first of all, like I said, there's only so much pie. The stack of cash only goes so high. And you got to be choosy where you spend it, because you're probably still trying to get a deal done with Bates. That's going to cost money. And how much is J.C. Jackson going to get? Because he's young. And he's a really good corner. So, you get on the market like that and you get a whole bunch of people. It's like on eBay. You get a product that people want, and sometimes you end up overpaying. You'll see what the final price was, and if you got out of it, you're like, I'm never going to pay that much for that. That's not even worth it. I can buy it straight up for less. People end up overpaying. And on eBay, that's really dumb. But, in the NFL. You're trying to get a Super Bowl, so sometimes people overpay. The Bengals typically don't. So I think the more likely, if they do cornerback, well, I should say, if they go after cornerback on the free agency market, I think Carlton Davis from the Bucs, I think he's much more likely. His name isn't as sexy as J.C. Jackson's, at least not that I've heard. I haven't heard his name run nearly as much as J.C. Jackson. But he seems to fit the mold really well for what Anarumo likes. They like tall corners. I'm not saying they can't, but you're not likely to see them sign some 5'9", or draft like a 5'9", 5'10" corner. They like guys who are 6', 6'1", who can go toe-to-toe with these tall receivers. They also like ball hawks. They like ones that can take the ball away. And Carlton Davis seems to be a good fit in that regard. I think if they go cornerback, they'll go there. Last position. And this one's just more fun. And I kind of overlooked this, almost by accident. We never talked about CJ Uzomah. I think they're going to re-sign him. I think they're going to let the tight end market set. I think they're going to re-sign him. And I think he's going to be, I might be a little bit of, I don't know, a little too positive, a little too Pollyannish on this one. But I think he wants to be here. I think they want him here. And I think they're perfectly happy to work out an agreeable deal in that regard. I don't think this will be some kind of tense negotiation type thing. I think that one way or another, they're going to figure out to make sure how he stays here. But the question at tight end is not CJ. And this is the conversation that I see on a lot of the Bengals groups that I'm in. And it's always, oh, no, we want CJ. We won't want this other guy. Name any other tight end. And they're like, no, we want CJ. I hate to tell you this, but teams have more than one tight end. That may come as a shock to you. Some teams even run two tight ends at the same time. I'll give you a minute to collect yourself. Okay. I really think that there's a chance that they sign a tight end on the free agent market. Unless they think that there's a high likelihood that a really good tight end is going to be there at 31 or in the late second round that, has the potential to, expand beyond that second round, late second round ranking. Two of the big ones out there that I think that they'll at least talk to are Gronkowski and Evan Ingram. Gronkowski, coming from the Bucs, had a pretty good season with Tom Brady. He definitely doesn't look washed up at all. Now, he is older. He would probably be on a more of a incentive-laden deal. But the thing Gronkowski would add to this team as a second tight end or opposite CJ, he has great pass-catching skills, yes. Though he's not as fast as he used to be. He's getting older. He is. But he adds a heck of a red zone presence. And his blocking is really good, even at his age. He's an excellent blocker. So I think he could be very interesting. Evan Ingram from the Giants, also very interesting. Apparently, in college, Evan Ingram was a heck of a pass-catching tight end. And I think having that dual threat at tight end would force defenses to play us more honestly, because they know for a fact there's just Drew Sample out there. We might as well just run 6 offensive linemen, because nobody sees Drew Sample going out there and catching passes. He does not catch passes. I mean, I think the guy's got stone hands or something. He might be a decent blocker, but he offers nothing in the versatility department beyond blocking. So I know they're probably not going to cut Drew Sample, but I wonder if they will try to trade him to a team that kind of just needs a tight end. I think they could look at Evan Ingram or Gronkowski. I would love it if Gronkowski came here, just, because Gronkowski's Gronkowski. But I think on that, kind of 1 year incentive heavy deal, that way they're not on the hook for injury and things like that. I think they could look at that. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear if you think I missed somebody, because as much as I research this and try to look into who's who and who's what and everything else, I'm sure there's all kinds of things out there, all kinds of players out there that I could have missed, or someone that I overlooked. Maybe you got someone you think I'm an absolute idiot, the dumbest person talking about football out there. Let me know. I definitely don't do this for a living. I have day jobs. So, but yeah, let me know what you think. If there's people that I missed, I might even come back and talk about them. Like I said, I will probably come back after free agency has largely died down and more or less over. Probably do a kind of where I was right, where I was wrong type of thing. Hopefully I'll come up with a better name for it than that. And then we'll end up looking into the draft a little heavier and kind of talking about that stuff. I enjoy talking about the Bengals. It gets it gives me a lot of therapy especially after the Super Bowl loss. So yeah, hit me up. Let me know what you think. Message me. Reach out on the Facebook page, or you can email me direct. wayofthedadpodcast@gmail.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. And we'll be talking more about the Bengals and their offseason coming up soon. Till next time, take care. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. The Way of the Dad podcast is produced and recorded by, well, me, a stunningly average husband and father, who appreciates all of the likes, shares, reviews, and support you give. If you would like to reach out, you can find the podcast on its Facebook page, and of course you can email me at wayofthedadpodcast@gmail.com. Come back next time as we continue to fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness.